Today we'll be talking about the Fisher Body Craftsman Guild, a national auto design competition sponsored by the Fisher Body division of General Motors. The contest, held from 1931 to 1968, provided incredible opportunities for boys and young men from 11 to 20 years old, with prizes including 4-year college scholarships to the universities of their choice. The Fisher brothers started the competition to promote and teach craftsmanship. Not only was there a possibility for higher education at a time when less than half the graduating high school seniors went to college, but in many cases there was also a job waiting for them. The Depression years provided few opportunities for youth to turn their lives around, and thousands of boys attempted to win. During its early years, boys were required to build a 1/18th scale Napoleonic coach from wood. This was the trademarked symbol of Fisher Body. The model was to be built following a set of plans which the Guild provided for free. Before the plans were sent, one had to join the Fisher Body Craftsman Guild. There was no cost, but membership required them to attest that they understood and would follow the rules of the contest. These rules included making a promise that the work was their own. No parents, siblings, friends, or other hands were to be involved in the construction of their model. Of course, this was impossible to prove, but was taken on faith. The detailed plans were intimidating. However, every few months, the Guild communicated with informative newsletters, including tips on construction techniques, painting, and detailing the models. After months of work, contestants packaged their completed models in Guild-specified wooden boxes and shipped them to Detroit via Railway Express. Upon arrival, the model was assigned a number and judged by Guild staff for scale fidelity and craftsmanship, including paint quality, trim work, and operating features. In 1937, Harley J. Earl, General Motors Vice President of Design, took over Guild operations. Mr. Earl reorganized the contest so Guildsmen could design and build model automobiles. Although contestants were encouraged to use their imagination to create an original design, a set of instructions were prepared, including a template which required a 1/12th scale be used. The reshaped contest became a highly successful recruiting and PR program for General Motors. Although the contest was postponed from 1939 to 1947, the end of World War II ushered in a new sense of optimism, and an exciting era in car design began. Cars were the technology of the day, and everyone looked forward to the latest designs from Detroit. Motoramas toured the country promoting cars of the future and inspiring imaginations. Becoming a car designer was a dream held by many boys, but for contestants with the talent to design and build a model automobile, the Fisher Body Craftsman Guild was the opportunity to make their dreams come true. Thousands of boys and young men sent their models to Detroit. Some were primitive attempts, others fantastic masterpieces. Wood was the most commonly used material, but clay, fiberglass, and metal were also permitted. The Fisher Body division sponsored the Guild contest. Fisher also funded the awards banquet, which was held during a 4-day, all-expense-paid trip to Detroit for the winners. The boys were notified by Western Union telegrams. The euphoric excitement of receiving a telegram announcing that your model had won an award, any award, after months of work was almost beyond words. Every Guildsman recalls where they were and what they were doing the moment their telegram arrived. The communications, travel itinerary, and accommodations for each boy were carefully planned by Guild staff. In subsequent telegrams and letters, Guild personnel detailed the transportation arrangements made for the Guildsmen to travel to Detroit. Upon arrival, the winning Guildsmen were treated royally. Usually they were picked up at the train station or airport in Cadillac limousines and whisked off to destinations like the Bloomfield Country Club for a lunch hosted by the Guild. During the luncheon, the boys got to meet other contestants, and the detailed itinerary was unveiled. The trip included a visit to GM's Design Center, where one could see upcoming cars being designed, meet with stylists, and view future models. They visited GM assembly plants, museums, and were organized into teams for sporting events. They attended musicals and plays, went on fishing expeditions, amusement parks, and all this fun culminated with the awards banquet. At the banquet, the Guildsmen officially received their recognition, including trophies and certificates. A wonderful dinner was served, and speakers, including the president of General Motors, addressed the boys and presented their awards. For many guildsmen, this was a life-changing event. Those young and ambitious enough would enter the contest multiple years, providing they were between the specified ages. But no matter how many times they entered or won, each guildsman was granted only one scholarship. And scholarships weren't the only prize. Cash awards were also given, and the trip to Detroit was an experience beyond words. Even Detroit natives had never seen behind the secretive walls of the Design Center. Some months after the trip home, a second award was given at the Guildsmen's High School. Local newspapers and radio stations were alerted, and the entire school was assembled for the presentation. Talk about feeling like a hero for the day. For General Motors, this was a public relations home run. Often the first exposure a boy had to the Guild was at the GM dealer, where the contest announcement was found in the flyers on the catalog rack. Indeed, the catalog rack was the very place where young car enthusiasts visited to pick up the latest brochure featuring new cars, and the dealers gave these away for free. The Fisher Body Craftsman Guild was also advertised in leading magazines of the day, and word was spread each June when the winners were announced in live radio broadcasts, and newspapers picked up the stories of the local boy who won.
The Fisher Body Division of General Motors presents the Fisher Body Craftsman Guild Annual Award. Good evening, everyone. This is Don Russell in Detroit. Dads and mothers, uncles, aunts, friends of the American boy, and boys everywhere are ready for the big event of the summer, the grand finale of the 1954 model car competition of the Fisher Body Craftsman Guild. Yes, tonight is Guild Award Dinner Night. Here at the Masonic Temple in Detroit, the Guild has gathered distinguished educators, scientists, and leaders in the Motor City's own famous industry to do homage to the winners in this traditional contest of skill, imagination, and hard work. Now, as you probably know, boys from all over the country enter their own designed and built model cars in this famous competition. From these boys, state award winners are first selected. Then, the 40 regional winners, the boys who are here tonight. Among these 40 boys are the 8 national winners, each of whom will receive one of the coveted top awards, a scholarship to the college or engineering school of his choice. The names of these lucky 8 are still a secret to the boys and their families. But in just a few minutes, while their parents from coast to coast watch with crossed fingers, and 40 youngsters wait with hammering hearts, the big news will be announced.
Now we'll hear from some retired guildsmen about their models and what the Guild meant to them and their careers.
I continued to try to innovate and come up with new designs. This was my 4th car, and it's my favorite because it was totally inspired by the influences and trying to do something different. I was trying to do something that said, why does a car need to have relatively straight lines as far as the eye is concerned? Why doesn't it move in 3 dimensions all over the car? And so that was the inspiration of it. It's one of the reasons why I still love it today. It was modeled in plastiline clay, and so I actually felt the form. You know, it would actually sculpt it like a sculptor would sculpt a piece of sculpture. So it was truly a sculptural approach as opposed to a carving approach. And that was very intoxicating, and it really opened up my mind that this industry is an industry of sculpture, applied sculpture, to a fascinating product, which is an automobile.
Around 1987, I left the Sylvania company and formed a partnership with another college friend of mine in the design business. And we went on to design many different products in the coal industry, in robotics, and so on. And I've just retired last spring at the age of 85. So I'm pursuing other things and reliving some of the wonderful years building the cars and meeting the wonderful people that are here today. And so I'm not doing a lot of creative things really at the moment. Seems like the more time I have, the less time I have. But it was a wonderful experience to living outside of the sort of mainstream industrial area in the state of Vermont.
When I was 15 is when I finally got an actual model built and entered in the competition, and in 1961, and then in 1962 I had a lacrosse coach. Since I played Little League lacrosse, I had a lacrosse coach that had a woodworking outfit in his basement, and he invited me over to cut out the sections for a model using all of his jigsaw and drills and things like that. So I was able to pre-cut everything like a puzzle. It was like a pine body and a poplar top on it. And anyway, the first model, which was a laminated pine, was like a First State Maryland Junior, and the 62 model was a First State Maryland Senior. But I was 16 years old on that. I worked very hard on that. A lot of metal trim. I really followed the Guild creed, you know, the bright work and beautiful paint job and lacquer, and really worked very hard at it. And I got a very lovely car out of it. But I couldn't imagine making any more. It just took so much effort to get to that. I think what was really a pretty good level. Now, the 62 model did well enough that I got a letter from the McNaughton, Mr. McNaughton at the GM Styling. He was in Human Resources, and even though the model was not a regional winner, it was high enough in points that he invited me to come up for an interview and stop by and see what was happening in GM Styling. And so my father drove me to Detroit, and of course I was all very excited. We were all very excited about it. And I was interviewed in terms of, you know, what kind of education I needed to work in GM Styling and what kind of things I needed to do. And basically that was really the beginning of really getting my interest going, really getting more seriously. I was going to be going to engineering school at the University of Maryland, and I continued to make models in engineering school. Although I worked at them at home, I still enjoyed that as a hobby, and I was really still going to win one of those national awards one way or the other. Somehow or other, I had to just hit it right. And so in '65, I went to the Art Center College of Design for a summer, using the models as my resume to go to the Art Center. And I learned the model making technique with fiberglass, clay and fiberglass. And then this is the model I made for '66 after learning those techniques. And this is the lacquer on the polyester fiberglass. And of course I had to study surface development at Art Center, and that's where you design the cross sections that went with this model. So as you did the clay, you had sections to work with for the first time in my life, rather than trying to figure out the symmetry from calipers or other things. So this is the last model I made. This was a First State Maryland.
I represent both my brothers today. Two brothers are not here. Jerry, my oldest brother, and my brother Eugene, who's not here as well. And we were sitting at the table, supper table. My brother Jerry might have been 14, I might have been 10. And my brother Jerry was just starting to think about college. And he came home, and every night at the Italian supper table, you can imagine, it was a pretty amazing moment. And as we were talking about college, and I'm listening, being the youngest one, I'm like, you know, what are they going to say? My father looked at us and he says, guys, I got to tell you something. I can put a roof over your head, I can put food on the table, but I cannot afford to send you to college. Whatever you can do is up to you. My brother Jerry took it to heart, and just happened to be a coincidence that fall at the high school, the Fisher Body people came by and put a demonstration on in the high school, asking for young boys to, excuse me, to design and build model cars. My brother heard that word, you know, money, scholarship, college, and he connected the dots. and he made his first car in 1956. And so from 1956 to 1962, we made 14 cars. And did it change my life? Sure did, because I watched my brothers start building the cars. I didn't even know I had talent. I didn't even know I could design or even fabricate something like this. I was 15 years old. Ask me if I could do that today, I don't think I could. And what it did for us, it sent all three of us to college. It gave us incredible confidence that we had some skills that we could use in other fields. And it was the hallmark of our lives to be part of the Guild. The saddest part of the Guild was when we didn't hear about it anymore. The contest went out in 1968, and we all put our cars away for about 40 years in the basements, and then we had them on display in my mother's house and father's house, and that was it. And luckily now we're reuniting and bringing back those wonderful memories that we had back then.
Money for a full scholarship was the top award in the Fisher Body Craftsman Guild, and General Motors guided those with an interest in working in the automobile industry to specific schools. There were only a few schools with transportation design programs, but whatever school the student selected, upon confirmation of enrollment, the Guild provided the tuition funds. After graduation, General Motors maintained contact and offered the most promising students jobs. Hundreds of talented designers and engineers got their start through this program. During this period, one of the reasons General Motors cars were so beautiful may have been the fact that they benefited by the designs Guild contest models provided, and the fact that they had a ready pool of young talent available to fill the growing requirements for designers and engineers in the Fisher Body Craftsman Guild contestants. General Motors realized this opportunity, and guildsmen like Chuck Jordan and Virgil Exner rose to the top leadership positions in their organization. But guildsmen not only became car designers or engineers, the skills and talents necessary to design and build a competitive model car were applicable to many fields. And guildsmen went on to successful careers in a wide range of industries. During Guild competition, the phrase stick-to-itness was coined, and guildsmen were well known for exhibiting this quality. As successful and loved as the Fisher Body Craftsman Guild was, the contest was held only 28 non-consecutive years. The contests were ended in 1968, and while many reasons have been speculated for its demise, it's been suggested that an unspecified order to get out of the youth outreach business was issued by the corporation. Perhaps it was the war in Vietnam, the change in youth culture, Woodstock, or that the GM bean counters couldn't justify its merit. Nobody knows for sure. An actual GM document discussing the contest's end or the reasons has never surfaced. However, for the youth that participated, it was a life-changing event. Any boy with an eye for design and the craft talents to build a model reflecting his design had a free opportunity to join the largest and most prestigious corporation in America. For General Motors, it was a huge benefit in terms of the talent pool it provided, the public relations and goodwill it fostered, and the leadership it demonstrated. All must have played a role in GM's success. But for the most part, even among the most knowledgeable car aficionados, many have never heard of the Fisher Body Craftsman Guild. How this dedicated and significant group of talented youth were forgotten is a mystery. The contest unceremoniously dropped and forgotten until recently. Encouraged by the efforts of John Jacobus, a guildsman, historian, and writer, a book was published which details the Guild years from beginning to end. An illustrated history of the Fisher Body Craftsman Guild was printed, and a resurgence of interest in the Guild has surfaced. Unfortunately, many of the earliest guildsmen have passed away. But through multiple Guild reunions held in different parts of the country, guildsmen are meeting again to recall their experiences and share their models and memorabilia. So where does that leave us today? Is there an opportunity for a mighty corporation to sponsor a similar contest? One that would find and develop talent, the types of talent needed for today and the future? Could a contest to provide opportunities for students with raw skill and work ethic to succeed, but perhaps not the funds to pay for the necessary education? Is there a lesson in the Guild example, and how could it be applied today? Hopefully someone watching will be inspired to consider how a contest modeled loosely after the Fisher Body Craftsman Guild competition could be fashioned for today's youth and today's technology.